Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, President Biden's COVID vaccine mandates on the line as the Supreme Court hears challenges to them today, and the justices could shut them down. Israel taking a new step in dealing with COVID. We'll tell you about that. And the latest on the statue at the United Nations that some say resembles an end-time beast described in the Bible. Plus, Christians are supposed to give of their finances to help others.
There is a need out there, and we just received blessings back that we can't begin to measure.
But how much are American believers actually giving? A new study has some surprising answers. And from giving to losing weight, that is. This Christian couple lost a combined 150 pounds.
We feel 20 years younger. We feel so much more energetic and active.
How they did it and how others can too. All those stories and more on today's CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
And we began at the Supreme Court hearing arguments today on President Joe Biden's vaccine mandates, the sweeping federal rules that could affect employers nationwide and tens of millions of American workers. CBN's Brody Carter brings us the story.
A deepening divide over vaccine mandates has worked its way through the legal system, reaching the High Court. The justice's decision could set a precedent in the balance between personal freedom and the government's power to act in a crisis.
What's at stake is whether or not our federal government can claim vast, expansive powers in times of emergency.
Justices will hear arguments on the constitutionality of President Biden's emergency executive order forcing private businesses with 100 or more employees to submit to mandatory vaccinations or face weekly testing.
And the answer to that surely has to be no. Otherwise, this concept of a limited federal government of enumerated powers has really been stretched to the breaking point.
Attorney Ryan Bangert with Alliance Defending Freedom says the vaccine mandate case is moving swiftly. OSHA first announced how it would enforce the mandate in November, which was immediately challenged in court. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals then froze the mandate and lifted the stay in December. Now the Supreme Court has agreed to step in.
If the court finds that the mandate should be stayed, then that would provide protection to our clients as well.
That decision would send the case back to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is overseeing all consolidated legal challenges to vaccine mandates.
There's also the possibility the court could simply decide the merits of the entire case tomorrow. We just don't know how the court's going to ultimately decide to handle this.
If the mandate is reinstated, businesses not following the rules could face fines of more than $13,000 per violation.
February 9th is the deadline for full compliance with the testing requirement.
If the court lets this go forward, we will see a big shift in power in the federal government from Congress to the federal bureaucracy.
Doug Badger with the Heritage Foundation says the main issue is whether OSHA, an executive branch agency, can make federal law.
But they can only do things that Congress has empowered them to do. Congress has not empowered OSHA to impose a vaccine mandate on businesses with 100 or more employees.
Other cases pending review, which will not be judged today, include individual state mandates, religious objections to vaccines, and dozens of litigations representing firms, businesses, and religious entities opposed to OSHA's mandate. The Supreme Court will be reviewing a separate mandate that would impact roughly 17 million healthcare workers. In total, the High Court will determine the fate of vaccine requirements affecting more than 80 million people. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Israeli government leaders made a new announcement Thursday in its fight against COVID. It will reopen its skies to international travel. Israel had imposed a travel ban in November to keep the Omicron variant out of the country. Government leaders credited the ban with helping Israel prepare for a major outbreak, but COVID cases are now soaring, and health ministry leaders believe the ban is unnecessary. The travel ban included the United States, the United Kingdom, and Mexico. Joining us now is our CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell with more on this story from Jerusalem. So, Chris, where does Israel stand in its fight against the Omicron variant?
Well, Ephraim, right now they have 16 new cases. Just yesterday, that was the highest one-day total ever since the coronavirus hit here in Israel. They're expecting many more in the next few weeks. The health ministry actually says they may have as many as 50,000 cases per day soon. However, which is what's happening with the Omicron variant in many places, critically ill patients remain stable. That number is not rising too much. Similar to those other reports, it's contagious but not as severe as the Delta variant. Recommending right now, that's what the Israeli government is doing, the fourth booster shot to people over 60. Interesting note, Ephraim, what it's like here locally. I was just at a movie theater yesterday. I was picking up actually some food, not going to a movie, but I saw people in line waiting for a COVID test. They wait 40 minutes for the results. If they get a negative results, then they can go to a movie. That's part of what life is like here in Israel right now with the COVID pandemic.
Seeing long lines here for tests as well. What restrictions are in place inside Israel, and what about tourists coming to Israel?
Well, one thing right now here in Israel, they have the green pass in effect to show if you're vaccinated, which means that you can go to certain places like a restaurant. If you're not vaccinated, you're not able to go into that restaurant. We know somebody who was vaccinated, not vaccinated, and they went into a shopping mall here. They actually couldn't even buy clothes in the shop. So, and often the regulations, they do change often, sometimes twice a day. This is in a place, front page on the Jerusalem Post, highlighting some of the recent regulations and what it means. Now, for tourists coming in, they need to be vaccinated. But like you said, they have opened the skies right now. But there's hope tourism will rebound. It's really had a disastrous effect here in Israel for the last almost 2 years now. Returning vaccinated Israelis, they need to have a negative test, 1 day quarantine. Unvaccinated returning Israelis, they have to have 2 negative tests and 7 days of quarantine. And I should point out, Ephraim, there are some Israelis that really do object to these green passes, an unnecessary violation of their rights.
I can imagine. Real quick, what do you have on this week's Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we have a story, Ephraim, about the Israeli government that wants to double the population on the Golan Heights. We also have a story, really a spectacular finds off the coast of the Caesarea, 2 shipwrecks in the same spot 1,000 years apart. One of the main things they found was a ring that had the image of a good shepherd on that, referring to Jesus as the good shepherd. And we also have a tribute to a man named Pastor Ray Bentley. He's an expert on prophecy, a great friend of Israel, actually a great personal friend. He passed away this week.
All right, thank you so much, Chris. Now, for more from Chris and the Middle East Bureau team, be sure to check out on the CBN News Channel this evening, Jerusalem Dateline. It begins at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Back here at home, a statue displayed at the United Nations in New York City, which some had compared to an end times beast from the book of Daniel and Revelation, has been removed. As CBN News reported, the artwork known as the Guardian for International Peace and Security was first displayed in November outside the UN's Visitors Plaza. A spokesperson for the Secretary General told CBN News the sculpture was not permanent and its removal had been planned because it was supposed to be a temporary exhibit organized by the Permanent Mission of Mexico to the UN. Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and the richest man in the world, says he agrees with the teachings of Jesus. Musk was interviewed by the Christian satire site The Babylon Bee. The interview dealt with serious subjects. Then at the end, the host said the Bee was a Christian organization and a ministry, and asked him if he'd like to pray for salvation. Musk said he agreed with the principles of Jesus, advocated, and that there was great wisdom in his teachings. And he added, but hey, if Jesus is saving people, I won't stand in his way. Sure, I'll be saved. Why not? And one of the Bee's hosts said, I think he just said yes. Musk did say in the interview, I'm not very religious. Now, you can read more about both of these stories at cbnnews.com. Coming up, giving is supposed to be one key attribute of a believer. So are believers in the United States living up to this biblical mandate? We're going to take a look when we come back. A recent study shows a large number of Christians are not answering the biblical call to give. The study also highlights a major factor that motivates people to dig a little deeper. As Charlene Aaron shows us, those actively involved in their faith appear to give more.
The report, The Generosity Factor, Evangelicals and Giving, found that 74% of evangelicals gave to their church at some point during the last year. Authors of the study also point out areas of concern when it comes to the issue of generosity and believers.
We had 19% who gave nothing whatsoever, nothing to church, nothing to charity. So 1 out of every 5 evangelicals is simply not a giver, or at least not in the last 12 months.
Ron Sellers of Gray Matter Research and Consulting, along with Infinity Concepts, explored the giving habits of evangelicals over a year's time.
We found that among evangelical Protestants, 74% give to their church or to a church. 58% give to charity outside of church, and that could be a Christian ministry, that could be a secular charity. Only 51% give to both church and charity.
According to the study, on average, an evangelical gave $1,923 to church and $622 to charity over the last year, for a grand total of $2,545. Sellers says while many Protestants believe in the biblical principle of tithing, few come close to it.
Only 13% were giving away at least 8% of their estimated income.
God commands us to give a tithe back to Him. And the best place that I can see to do that, and He commands us, is the place where we're fed spiritually, and that would be our local church.
Sellers points out a significantly higher rate of giving came from those who regularly read the Bible and attend church.
We found a very significant, substantial, and consistent difference in giving patterns, no matter how it's measured, whether they give, how much they give, and how generously they give compared to their own means, according to how involved people are in their faith.
86% of those who attended church at least once a month, in person or online, gave, compared to 42% who attended less than once a month. And for those who read the Bible each week, giving was at 400% higher than those who rarely or never opened the book. Dr. Corney Becker of Regent University's School of Divinity says giving is often tied to gratitude.
Gratitude is when we not only understand what we've received, but the ability to then extend that gratitude to others.
And that can be expressed in a variety of ways.
Often it's given to either mission or humanitarian organizations such as feeding the poor or taking care of those people that are indeed destitute. And we have to remember that this is not something for Christians or evangelicals that is apart from our faith. It is central to us.
A large number interviewed for the study support 3 or more charities outside of their church, generosity for which the Salvation Army is grateful.
The American public stepped up in a wonderful way to support the Salvation Army during the pandemic.
Commissioner Kenneth Hodder serves as national commander.
It doesn't surprise me that when people believe that the Lord Jesus Christ has changed their life, that they're willing to give in support of the Salvation Army and other organizations to ensure that others have that opportunity as well.
And while the study found half of evangelicals give less than 1% of their annual income, those who do see it as rewarding and fulfilling.
There is a need out there, and we just received blessings back that we can't begin to measure.
It shines God's love. It's really just about giving God, showing God. You know, you can say you love God, but practicality is when you're physically doing things, you're giving, you're blessing people, you're helping those in need. So that's exactly what Jesus did.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Still ahead, how one Christian couple lost a ton of weight. He lost 100 pounds, his wife lost 50. We're going to tell you how they did it right after this. It's common for people to put on some extra pounds over the holidays and then they want to get rid of them. That is smart because doctors say maintaining a healthy diet and exercise are among the best ways to avoid getting deadly diseases. Medical reporter Lori Johnson introduces us to a man who lost 100 pounds and his wife who dropped 50.
Together, Jeff and Angela Jordan developed a love of running and in the process lost a combined 150 pounds.
We feel 20 years younger. We feel so much more energetic and active.
25 years ago, they developed a love for each other. Like many couples, over time, they gradually put on weight. At 5'9", Jeff tipped the scale at 264 pounds, and 5'3", Angela weighed 195.
I had actually gotten to the point where my wedding ring was cutting off the circulation to my finger, and I started to develop lower back pain just from standing and doing the dishes.
In an effort to exercise with accountability, they joined the Kempsville Running Club.
They asked us what our goals were, and we said, well, we're here for fitness. And they said, well, that's great, we'll help. They were just there for everybody, whether they were going to run an ultramarathon or whether they're just going to walk or jog to the end of the street.
Jeff and Angela say running brings them closer to God.
To go out on a run and put just worship music on and to surround yourself in that, and you feel like you've actually been to church and worshiped.
They initially thought they were too busy to exercise, but after hitting the road, have felt blessed with greater productivity in less time.
And I told God, I said, look, every step I take towards becoming physically fit, I want you to prosper it and bless it. And I feel like He has.
Soon after the Jordans started running, they wanted to get better at it and enjoy it more. That motivated them to change their diet.
I started to naturally gravitate towards the foods that were going to provide better energy.
Like whole grains, vegetables, beans, and fruit.
One of the things that I had discovered in all of the research was that 97% of Americans are deficient in fiber. And I found the more I migrated toward that higher fiber content actually translated to more weight loss.
Then the couple started counting calories.
If you take in less than you burn, you're going to lose weight. And you can see it in black and white. You see exactly. And I think with putting everything down on paper, there's no blind spots.
After a year, Jeff lost 100 pounds and Angela lost 50, along with her back pain.
One day I was just like, you know what, it's gone. I don't have to take the ibuprofen anymore. And look at this ring actually comes off now.
They hope their results and testimony inspire others.
I would say it doesn't have to be running, but find your exercise that suits you and pursue it.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Coming up, how CBN's Operation Blessing brought hope and God's love during the Christmas holiday to homeless survivors of a major typhoon in the Philippines. We'll have that story for you coming up next. I want to take you now to the Philippines, where teams from CBN's Operation Blessing spent the Christmas holiday serving victims of Typhoon Ray. As Lucille Talusan reports, they went to remote islands to bring cheer, hope, and God's love to thousands of homeless typhoon survivors.
The power of the catastrophic Category 5 Cyclone Rai is seen in this actual cell phone video. These residents used a piece of plywood as a shield against flying iron sheets and other debris. Although they fled to an evacuation center for safety, strong winds and rain tore the roof off the building, exposing them to more danger. They believe that the faith and prayers of the children saved them.
I told them, don't cry. Papa Jesus will save us. Just relax. Papa Jesus will stop the storm.
No casualties were reported in their village, but this is what is left of the coastal community. These villagers are now in urgent need of food and clean water. Grace Kapangpangan is due to give birth any time. She is distressed over the tragedy they now face. All the houses in their village were wiped out.
We don't have a house, and we don't know where to start, where to get the money to buy food. All our rice got wet, and all our belongings blown away by the strong winds.
Operation Blessing immediately coordinated with the Philippine Armed Forces, local government units, and church partners. OB was the first non-government organization to help most of the communities of Siargao and the Dinagat Islands, right on Christmas Day.
Without your help, we will not have anything to eat today. Thank you so much to all of you who extended assistance to us. Thank you so much.
Also, on the island of Leyte in central Philippines, tens of thousands were left homeless by Typhoon Rai. Many of them, like Jennifer Danhao and her family, now live in makeshift tents along the road. Jennifer shared her Christmas wish with CBN News.
I just want for my family to be more comfortable, especially during the cold nights.
Jennifer got her wish when another Operation Blessing team saw them camped along the road and gave her family and her neighbors food bags containing rice, noodles, canned goods, water, coffee, and New Testament Bibles. They also received much-needed mats and blankets.
I am so happy because you gave us a mat, and the blanket will keep us warm. We can use them for the rest of our lives. And we have food for Christmas that will last until the new year. Thank you so much.
Despite difficulty in transporting much-needed relief, Operation Blessing made it to the hardest-hit islands over the Christmas holidays, bringing the spirit of good cheer, hope, and love to the typhoon survivors. Lucille Talusan, CBN News.
And you can find out more about Operation Blessing by visiting ob.org. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and today I leave you with this word to consider. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. And in His goodness, He's causing all things to work together for your good. No matter what trials you may be facing, take comfort in that good word from a good God, and be sure to have yourself a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or throughout this week. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. We hope you'll join us again right here next time. Again, have a fabulous Friday.